ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतङ्गमय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। Let us offer our salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, who lived the life of spirituality, who inspired all the religions, let us pray to him to lead us from unreal to the real, from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, from death to immortality. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Sri Ramakrishna has given practical ways of realizing the truth. Whatever Sri Ramakrishna says can be done. It is not simply theorizing. It is not simply trying to explain invisible in a vague manner. No. Sri Ramakrishna showed to the whole world that truth could be realized. It is not impossible. Many people think that in this world we are so much dragged by so many duties. We can't get away from this. But staying in the same world, Sri Ramakrishna did show that one could see, one could experience heavenly peace and bliss. So he showed religion in his practical life. It should be possible when Sri Ramakrishna had realized it. And Sri Ramakrishna assures that every body could have that experience. He has given many ideas. We can take any one of them, just live the life. We can arrive at the ultimate realization only when we are conscious of what we are doing. For the time being, we are terribly weak. There is no willpower. There is no determination. There is no interest. Why? All these things are taken away by the worldly matters. We have just thrown ourselves into this. So everything is very difficult now for us. Everything. Even to come to the chapel is very difficult, let alone realization of God. It's very far, far away. Even to come to the chapel, 1,000,000 reasons we give. 1,000,000. Because we are terribly weak, physically weak, mentally weak, weak in all respects. How can you expect to get into that highest state of everlasting bliss? I am just pointing out the weaknesses so that let us be honest in accepting our weaknesses instead of covering them. Why should we defend for whatever we do wrong? Why should we defend? By defending the wrongdoings, we are hoodwinking ourselves, we are deceiving ourselves, we are cheating ourselves. Then, that is why Sri Ramakrishna came. Look, don't bother about anything else. Start now afresh. Don't brood over the past misdeeds or past weaknesses or whatever the things. Put an end to all those things. Start your life fresh. So Sri Ramakrishna's life is a glorious example for us. Even day-to-day life, how we are negligent in our doing the things. Smallest things we do so carelessly. So careless. But spirituality is possible only for those who assert themselves that inherent strength. Those who possess, who try to manifest that latent spiritual power. So today's topic I am speaking about equation of spirituality. What is this equation? To put it in a mathematical way, just to draw your attention to specifics, that's my idea. Mathematical equation easy to remember also. What is that? Equation of spirituality. There are so many equations. Wonderful. All these equations are very useful. Let us try to understand and follow it up. S equals Y plus S plus F plus M. S stands for spirituality. How one can become spiritual? Only if he understands the four other mathematical symbols given there. The first one is Y. The second one is S. Third one is F. Fourth is M. Y plus S plus F plus M. Now the first one, each one precedes the other. They are all complementary. Each one is as important as the other. So all these things are to be given full attention. The first Y means yearning for realization. Yearning for realization. The second one, S, stands for self-effort and self-surrender. The third one, F, stands for faith. And finally, M stands for meditation. All these four are to be looked into with all attention. Now this yearning for realization is a very important factor in our spiritual life. Without yearning, spirituality is zero. So we must try to cultivate that yearning, deep interest to achieve the goal. Uttishtata jagrata prapya varan nibodhata. The famous quotation of Kathopanishad given by Swami Vivekananda. Rise awake, stop not till the goal is reached. We must have that dogged determination, that dogged earnestness to experience that highest truth in the life. That is the important factor we should practice in the life. But then, yearning does not come so easily, because we know how our mind behaves, how our mind jumps every moment. So is it a joke? But then life is meant for us to develop this special quality of yearning. Through life we get experiences, so many types of experience. Each one is full of experience. Each one. But we must analyze our experiences. Experiences do come, but we must analyze them with open eyes, with open mind. We immediately realize the vanities of human life and earthly possessions. Then mind turns towards God. There is a story. Once there was an old woman. She loved wealth intensely. This desire was deeply embedded in her subconscious mind. Once she undertook a fast for 41 days, and she kept vigil for certain hours of the night. Some discipline she wanted to follow, and she did. On the last day of her austerities, that is on the 41st day, the goddess appeared and asked her, "Well, you have been fasting rigorously. All these 41 days you have not taken anything. What can I do for you? What do you want?" Goddess asked. Immediately the woman answered, "I want money." Goddess then said to her, "Well, you shall have plenty of money in your next life." Finished, she disappeared. A golden opportunity lost. We can't teach a person to yearn for God. It must come from within. It must come to each individual. Yet, when there is yearning, everything becomes easy. Sri Ramakrishna used to narrate a parable regarding this yearning. Once a disciple asked the teacher how he could see God. Immediately, the teacher didn't answer him. One day he took him to the riverside, and without telling him anything, he simply pushed him under the water and held him there for a couple of minutes. Then he released him. Thereafter, the teacher asked the disciple, "Well, how did you feel when I was pressing your neck under the water?" The disciple answered, "Sir, I was longing intensely for a breath of air. There was no other thought in the mind." The teacher then instructed, "Well, When you feel that way for God, you will get Him. So, that yearning comes only when we cherish unflinching love towards God. The love that a devoted wife possesses for her husband, the attachment a miser feels for his hoarded wealth, the clinging desire which the worldly minded foster for the things of the world. When the intensity of an aspirant's heart's longing for God is equal to the force of these three combined, then he will attain Him. But we should also admit that in every walk of life there are dangers to be avoided and obstacles to be overcome. So, this is also true in spiritual life. There's a famous book called Meditation and Spiritual Life by Swami Chidananda. There, he points out that the greatest obstacle in spiritual life is what? It is the tendency to live a fashionable religion. Note the word fashionable. We don't want to undergo any kind of disciplines in the life. At the same time, we want to be religious. Everything should become easy. We must not reduce to that state. So earnestness comes only if there is spiritual hunger. Are we hungry spiritually? We have to ask that question. If we are hungry, then it leads to yearning for divine realization. It doesn't allow us to sit quiet. Probably you might have heard, you might have read the life of Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. When he was a boy, he began to experiment. One day, he wanted to find out who is this I. So, finally, he got some glimpse what it would be. Then he wanted to find out the truth. He could not stay in the home even for a moment. He got out of the home and went far away and led a rigorous meditative life and finally realized the truth. We undertake spiritual practices because of this earnestness, which will take us nearer and nearer to the ultimate goal. Our human birth is a great privilege to accomplish this in this very life. Holy company is necessary. Everywhere, for every practice, for anything that is to do with spirituality, always holy company is suggested. Without holy company, no spirituality is possible. Why? Because it is these holy people, those follow the spiritual path and are capable of leading us in their own way. They strengthen us in our pursuit. They reflect something of the divine glory. They teach us by their own personal example. So they are living inspirations to us. Living inspiration. They teach us by their own personal example. By constantly coming in touch with holy association, we develop yearning for God. We learn to feed the soul through the practice of worship, japa and meditation. When Narendra Nath, who became Swami Vivekananda, when he came to Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Ramakrishna immediately recognized in Narendra Nath a burning, tremendous spiritual hunger. So, what did Sri Ramakrishna do? He just gave a mystic touch to Narendra Nath. At once, Naren had a strange experience. He saw the room with all the objects in the room whirling around him. They were all disappearing into void, into which he too was about to merge. This is the first experience. He was not familiar with such experiences. So, he cried out. He cried literally, "What are you doing to me? What are you doing? I have parents at home." Still his mind was not yet prepared. He had just started coming to Sri Ramakrishna. With a smile, Sri Ramakrishna immediately brought him back to normal consciousness. As a result of his frequent contacts with Sri Ramakrishna, Narendra Nath soon began to practice spiritual disciplines in all earnestness under the guidance of Sri Ramakrishna. As a result, he was blessed with innumerable visions and experiences. He had Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the highest spiritual experience. So, the first thing in spirituality is earnestness. To cultivate and develop this earnestness, we must have spiritual hunger, and holy association will make us develop this yearning for God. The next is self-effort and self-surrender. This is also a very important factor. Without doing effort, how can we expect anything at all? Simply by desiring something, it won't come. You have to go to the market. Suppose you want to buy a certain article. Simply sitting in the home, if you repeat the name of the article, would that article come there? One will have to go. One has to work hard. That's it. Self-effort, it precedes self-surrender. If our present life is the result of our own past, it follows that we can change our future by our present efforts. What is this law of karma? It is nothing but the law of self-effort. The law of karma is the law of self-effort. It is intelligent, conscious self-effort. Then what is destiny? Destiny is the expression of the efforts made in the previous life. The stream of tendencies flow through good and evil channels. We all have those channels in us. By self-effort, it should be directed along the good path. When it has entered the evil path, it is to be turned towards good path. Sri Ramakrishna, once he complained to the Divine Mother, "Oh Mother, I have cooked the food, everything is ready, kept it before the people, but still they did not even take the trouble of eating it." How Sri Ramakrishna, how many times he would have to call for the disciples, "Come along, here is a divine treasure, I am ready to distribute." He was crying from the top of his voice. We always want everything to be done for us by somebody else. That is the greatest mistake we do generally. We entangle too much in worldly ways and worldly things. When we become hopeless, we try to put the fault on somebody else. Not till then. Sometimes some people might hold even God responsible for all that happens to them. They forget everything else for a moment's pleasure and do not care to listen to what God has been telling man through the ages. We are suffering because of our false personality with all its false relationships. Our center of consciousness is too much on the body and the mind and on the matter. Our present personality is a combination of our body, senses, and mind and ego. What is spiritual life? It is breaking up this complex, shifting the center of consciousness from this complex to the soul, the indwelling spirit, the light. This requires lot of determined will and steady self-effort. The cause for this complex is ignorance. When ignorance vanishes, this combination continues for a little while, then it stops. It is just like stopping the rowing of a boat. Even if we stop the rowing, the past momentum carries the boat to some distance. It is just like that. There are people, by their self-effort, they realize the highest truth. They enjoy all peace and bliss. But still, they continue to live in the body, in the world. Why? Because of the momentum. Let the body remain as long as it wants to. The soul is not concerned about it. It has known the truth. To take the example of gold, first the ore should be separated from all sorts of useless things. Dust, dirt, sand. It is then put in the fire. This is first separation. All the dross is burnt by continuous heating at very high temperature. It is then pure gold is obtained. This is called purification. Similarly, in spiritual life, using our faculty of reasoning, we should separate soul from body. We should separate the soul from the mind, and then it should be freed from the impurities of the mind through the disciplines. To carry out this program, self-effort is essential. We must discipline our senses with all firmness. We must free the mind from lustful ways. We must engage the mind thoroughly in healthy, self-elevating, spiritual ideas, keeping our reasoning faculty always on alert. That's very important. Then only we get real knowledge. Without making effort to acquire this knowledge, we have no hope to become free from bondage and sorrow. There is a knot between truth and falsehood. What is that knot? It is egoism. True knowledge burns away this knot, and when the ego or false self vanishes, we realize the true self. This is where tremendous uninterrupted striving and practice plays most important role. Self-effort makes one perfectly steady to experience the highest realization. Even the incarnations, they do not simply keep quiet. Even Sri Ramakrishna, take the example of Sri Ramakrishna himself, how he did intense sadhana, intense practices every day. Morning he would go to Panchavati, spend long hours in deep thinking about the Divine Mother. He was fully concentrating all his energies. And then he would come and pray to Mother in the chapel with same intensity. So intensity was too high. He could not bear any longer. He put his maximum effort to have the vision of the Divine Mother. Then finally, Sri Ramakrishna was blessed by the vision of the Divine Mother. So, everybody will have to make effort in this spiritual life. Now the next, that is, it is connected with self-effort. Self-effort and self-surrender, they go together. We do effort, no doubt, but at the same time, we must pray for the grace of the Lord. Grace of God is important. In our doing the things, we might have committed lot of mistakes, but then God alone should forgive. He alone should come and help us in our ways. So self-surrender plays a very important part in the spiritual life. Self-surrender to the divine is in itself a mighty form of sadhana. Lord Krishna tells in the Gita, in the 18th chapter, where he says, Ishvaras sarvabhutanam hriddeshe arjuna tishtati. The Lord dwells in the hearts of all beings. But then, why the beings are suffering? They are suffering because of the Maya. It is the delusion that makes him suffer. Turn round and round as though mounted on a machine. Just as a puppet player moves the puppets. So, we should take refuge in God with all our heart. Then by Lord's grace, we would attain supreme peace and eternal abode. When we do not incline towards God, we become more egocentric. That results in miserable state. On the other hand, if we surrender to the divine and make God the center of our consciousness, the ethical and spiritual life become easy. We should practice prayer, intense prayer, when we are troubled with lower tendencies. And then we will find some power coming and lifting us up. Prayer has got a tremendous power. Because people forget God and forget their own spiritual destiny, they are in great suffering. So they will have to learn through suffering. So suffering is to be looked upon as a teacher. Sometimes the treatment is more painful than the disease, but one has to undergo it. The stronger the disease, the stronger must be the treatment. In case of every disease, there is a curative crisis, and this is a step leading to perfect cure. So our spiritual masters, they always tell all suffering is for our training. Even the holy people have undergone lot of suffering. But because they know how to analyze them, they are not to be disturbed by suffering. Our instincts are to be controlled and burnt in the fire of spiritual striving. So, if we look at suffering spiritually, we must convert suffering into spiritual strength. There is an analogy of the salt dole. Sri Ramakrishna would often tell this in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. There is reference. It went to measure the depth of the ocean. It got dissolved. This happens only in the case of the dole of pure salt, but not of the dole of sand or of the dole made of plenty of salt and sand. In all of us, both salt and sand are there. In order to practice absolute surrender, the sand is to be eliminated or transformed into salt. Our ego, with its pride and innumerable desires, cannot be transmuted easily, but attempts are to be made little by little so that eventually the sand is removed. When the salt nature asserts itself, a great surge of love overpowers us and self-surrender becomes easy. The third equation of spirituality is the faith. It plays a very important role in spiritual life. Once the divine consort of Parvati, divine consort of Shiva, Parvati, She asked him a question. What is the root of the everlasting, eternal and all-embracing bliss? Shiva replied, the root is faith. If the mother says to the child, Sri Ramakrishna says this example, here is your brother. The child completely believes that the person referred to is really his brother. If the mother says, don't go there is a ghost, and attain God with the calculating nature of the worldly minded. There was a disciple who had firm faith in the infinite power of his Guru. He walked over the river by simply uttering the name of the Guru. The Guru heard this, he became very much astonished and he began to think himself, well, is there such a power in my name? Then how very great and powerful must I be? He began to assert himself. So next day, the teacher himself also tried to walk over the river, but he was uttering I, because he thought, because of this I, his disciple could walk over the river. But then, no sooner did he enter the waters, he sank and he was drowned, for the poor man did not know how to swim even. Faith can achieve miracles, while vanity or egoism brings about the destruction of man. Regarding this wonderful quality of faith, Sri Ramakrishna gives another fine story. There was a man. He became very sorry because his only son was on the point of death. What's to be done? Is there nobody to help me? Any moment my only son might pass away. What should be done? Fortunately, a holy man came on the way. He inquired what happened. Then he said, well, don't lose hope. There is a chance. Your dying son could be saved. The father became very happy. What? How is it? This Mahatma is telling me like this. It is as if God himself has come. So he was prepared to do anything, whatever the Mahatma said, in order that his son might be saved from death. He said, look, there is only one possibility. That is, you must get a human skull wherein the venom of cobra is collected. That should be mixed with a few drops of rainwater. Not ordinary rainwater. The rainwater under the constellation of the Swati star. There is a particular name of the star by name Swati. Then your son's life can be saved. The father immediately became very happy. Here is a person who is giving lot of hopes. So he believed completely his words. He thought everything would happen as the Mahatma said. So he looked up the almanac and found, to his surprise, that the constellation of the Swati would be in the ascendant on the next day. Then he prayed to God, O Lord, please make it possible that all these conditions are fulfilled so that my son may be saved from death. So, with extreme earnestness and longing in his heart, he set out the following evening and he searched in a deserted spot for a human skull. Luckily, he found there was a skull under a tree. He immediately went there. He held it in his hand and he was praying again to God. Now the rainwater has to come. Raindrops are to be collected there. Then that Swati rain, it began to shower. The few drops were collected in that skull. It so happened just at that moment, a cobra was chasing a frog. It was about to catch. It was just springing on him. Just at that moment, the little frog, it jumped over the skull, followed by the cobra. In that process, in that excitement, what happened? Some drops of the venom of the cobra fell into the skull. Well, now all the conditions are fulfilled. The boy was saved. He became very happy. His faith was firmly rooted. So Sri Ramakrishna remarks, if you have true faith and earnest longing, you will get everything by the grace of the Lord. That is how Sri Ramakrishna assures. Let us cultivate that faith. And lastly, the last part of the equation is on meditation. How many of us do really know the value of meditation? How many of us do really care to meditate? We are prepared to do anything but meditation. But meditation is very important part in spiritual life. It is not that much difficult if only we take it easily and do it without any excitement, without losing balance. There is a technique of doing meditation. Not simply coming and as soon as you sit, immediately you will get into absorption. It won't happen that way. We must know we are dealing with the mind. We may close the eyes outside. We must have stopped all the external activities. True, for all outward show I am sitting without doing anything. But inside, mind is hectic. It is thinking and thinking all sorts of things. It can't sit there. It gets up immediately. No, I can't do meditation because mind is restless. Why the mind is restless? Because of so many things we are doing outside. Because of so many innumerable desires cropping up. It is overburdened by the desires. It is loaded by the heavy weight of the desires. With that heavy weight, how can you meditate? You must unload all those things. That's the thing. So there are steps. You must clear the mind from all these problematic things. The mind has become diseased because of the desires. The mind has lost its power to think. because of its too much involvement in the unreal things of the world. So, Sri Ramakrishna here tells, don't worry, I will make meditation easy. How? Sri Ramakrishna tells, before starting meditation you think of me, I will set right everything. It is Sri Ramakrishna's words. You simply think of me, I will do everything for you. Just think of me. Me means Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna's words. Just look at him. See him intently. And with simple faith, just keep on looking at him. Then you will see mind gets calmed down. Mind calms down. The more we give attention to the noble thoughts, the more it becomes calm and quiet. That is why often our spiritual teachers suggest, if you want to have spirituality, don't have too many activities, too many distracting activities. True, we have to earn money. It's all right, but that doesn't mean that you must work for 24 hours. Not like that. You are earning money. In the same way, you must earn your spiritual livelihood also. You must not neglect your spiritual life. So we are neglecting the real life. We are holding on to the false life. So we are always suffering and suffering. At no point of time we will be happy. No point of time. Because we are holding on the false things. Happiness comes only when we hold on to the real. That is why in the beginning, in the prayer we said, Asato ma sadgamaya. O God, lead us from the unreal to the real. So this way we must give training to the mind, and we must take all appropriate measures to see mind is not distracted. Then only meditation becomes possible. In meditation, there are only two things. The one who meditates and the object of meditation. You just imagine in deep sleep how you feel yourself. After waking up, you say, oh, I was so happy. I had wonderful, undisturbed, dreamless sleep. Though you do not know, you can't explain what it is, but you had that full satisfaction. It is just like that. Meditation also, if one does it properly, he gets same satisfaction. And he will be interested to do meditation more and more. More and more. Because he has found out the joy. He wants to have it more frequently. So these are the 4 factors which we should remember in our spirituality. One is earnestness, yearning of the heart, yearning to realize the divine God. Then self-effort and self-surrender, faith and meditation. When these 4 factors are taken care of, spirituality is ours. And everybody can have spirituality. We wish and pray, Sri Ramakrishna, that all of us would be lifted to that high state of spirituality. Thank you all. We have got Bhagavad Gita class at 12:30 p.m. here in the Shivananda Hall. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavamahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.